About a year ago, Sam Altman was the CEO of a tech business that revolutionized the industry. Altman was sacked by OpenAI, the world's hottest startup, because to ChatGPT on Friday afternoon. It surprised tech insiders, including OpenAI and Microsoft, one of its major backers. Over the weekend, OpenAI investors reportedly scrambled to restore Altman before today's opening bell. It appears they moved too slowly. Altman and former OpenAI president Greg Brockman have been hired by Microsoft to lead a new advanced AI research team, according to the CEO, Satya Nadella, as he said it on X, formerly known as Twitter.
Let's talk about what exactly this means for Microsoft, because Microsoft's move to hire ousted OpenAI CEO Sam Altman is sending the stock to the upside here this morning. Now, the move that we saw earlier today would have added about $50 billion to the tech giant's market cap at the open. We're now seeing a bit of a more muted reaction, up just about 0.7% in the pre-market. For more on this, we want to bring in Rishi Galoria. He is RBC software equity analyst. Rishi, it's good to see you. So the first question, obviously, to you is how big of a win is this from Microsoft getting Sam Altman to lead their new AI team?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Look, this is a huge coup for Microsoft. I think there's no getting around that. This is probably the most eventful weekend I've ever seen in my decade plus covering software. And the worries that I think everyone had is the pace of innovation would slow down. Some of the AI halo around Microsoft that it's been enjoying in its multiple, would start to dissipate. Customers would get worried. And I think by bringing in Sam and Greg, right? And Sam is obviously the ultimate visionary when it comes to AI. It's really the best case scenario for Microsoft, given everything that transpired since Friday.
Rishi, I mean, like many of us out there, I imagine at some point over the weekend you were probably squinty-eyed into your phone early hours or late hours of the night and trying to figure out, okay, what does all of this mean for OpenAI's future, but as well for Microsoft, because this was about $10 billion that they were set to spend or earmarking to spend over several years to really further this investment in generative AI. How much of that perhaps do they get the opportunity to pull back at this point? Because according to some reports by Semaphore, it really hadn't been at least dispersed in full and perhaps not even keeping pace with how much investors expected it to be dispersed to this time.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think Microsoft is kind of in a situation where they have multiple ways they can win. Obviously, they have this relationship with OpenAI is going to continue. I don't think that goes away. I think they will continue to use GPT, and nothing's going to change there. However, will they put net new money to work at OpenAI? That remains to be seen. And at the same time, obviously, they've already been working on their own AI technology, and I think the pace at which Microsoft continues to develop their own tech that will probably be competitive with OpenAI, I think that will accelerate. So that's really how I see this playing out. Is it's kind of a Microsoft wins no matter what happens type of scenario.
Rishi, when it comes to the win, how Satya Nadella was able to get Altman on board in such a timely manner, I guess, what does that tell us just about the leadership, obviously, that we have seen under Satya Nadella and how this could set up Microsoft here for the next several years?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think as much as we've all admired Satya, we have to admire him even more now, right? Satya is the truth. And how he was able to pull this off, I don't think any of us know. I know, obviously, he and Sam had built up a very close relationship over the past several years and absolutely over the past year. And this is really kind of an out-of-the-box solution, right? I think what a lot of us were thinking is Sam was going to start up a new venture. Microsoft would invest in that, and it would take years to recover. And in kind of one quick move, Microsoft is actually probably ahead now versus where they were 3 days ago, because now they're in more direct control of their own destiny, right? They obviously still have the OpenAI relationship, but the worry that people had is, well, as OpenAI goes, Microsoft goes. Now you have Sam and Greg. And remember, if you read Satya's tweet between the lines, there are other colleagues joining them as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are going to be a lot of former OpenAI people who joined Microsoft as well.
Yeah, you've got some reports out this morning. Wired and Kara Swisher reporting this, that there are other OpenAI employees, including one of the co-founders, Ilya, that have signed a letter and are looking to perhaps look for some changes from the remaining board members, or else they will resign here and perhaps join Sam Altman, as you were just mentioning there a moment ago. So all of these things considered, say you're one of the other major players in tech that has made an investment into generative AI, and now you've potentially missed the opportunity twice on some of the brain trust that's within OpenAI. If there is kind of this flooding out of employees elsewhere, where does that leave some of the other players that are trying to make sure that they still have some of the market share here?
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult, right? I can tell you, look, I live in San Francisco. I can tell you firsthand, hiring qualified generative AI data scientists and engineers and talent is very, 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 very difficult. And, the Microsoft is now a destination employer for generative AI engineers. OpenAI was that. I think, this maybe even increases the gap between Microsoft and others that are trying to compete. That's not to say they can't succeed. That's not to say there can't be multiple winners. I truly believe there will be multiple winners in generative AI, especially when it comes to domain expertise. But right now, I think Microsoft continues to have the lead.
And Rishi, when it comes to the reasons here behind the potential firing, there were reports just about the speed at which Sam Altman was moving within OpenAI, some questions just about security and whether or not those risks were being properly addressed. Now that he's on board at Microsoft, I guess, how do you see Microsoft potentially approaching this, or would you expect them maybe to be a bit more cautious given the fact that those risks within AI are still very prevalent and are still very much at the forefront of the minds of many of these investors?
I do expect Microsoft to be a little bit more cautious, right? I still think the pace of AI innovation continues at this breakneck speed that we've seen over the past year. However, because now this is happening inside at Microsoft and it's not arm's length, which is how it was with OpenAI before, I do think there will be more guardrails. You've heard Satya talk about how Microsoft is committed to, responsible and ethical AI, and I think that will continue. So I don't expect the rate of innovation to slow down, but absolutely, I do think there will be more guardrails around how AI develops within the four walls of Microsoft. In terms of if those reports are true, what that means for OpenAI. Recall that the next biggest player in this space, Anthropic, was founded by a number of ex-OpenAI employees who are kind of concerned around the commercialization and ethics. So it remains to be seen how that OpenAI versus Anthropic dynamic evolves. But yes, absolutely, I think Microsoft will put some more guardrails around AI development in-house.
It still costs a lot of money for OpenAI to be run. There were some reports, Analytics India magazine had also looked into this and revealed OpenAI's losses essentially doubling since starting ChatGPT. We know it's, about 5 cents every time somebody perhaps runs some boneheaded search on there and then tries to replicate that over and over again. $500 million a year is what they expected and kind of calculated the company is losing, could go bankrupt by the end of 2024 if it does not find a way to have a better revenue model and have it pass through to some margins there as well. Is this a company without Sam Altman that exists at the end of 2024, at the end of next year, if they're not able to have a better board structure and ultimately retain these employees?
I think OpenAI needs to make some changes, right? I mean, I think, the board structure stuff and board members and board composition, that's all publicly out there in the market. But I also think, OpenAI was kind of coasting on the purse strings of Microsoft. And, they were kind of able to invest as aggressively as they could without monetization, right? Like, let's be completely honest. I pay for ChatGPT 4 out of pocket. $20 a month is a very deep bargain compared to what, the value that I'm getting out of it. And so I think they need to figure out, how can they charge more? And I think without Sam and Greg and the rest of the team, that's going to be really difficult. So I think, absent some major changes, OpenAI is going to look like a very, very different company. Microsoft, on the other hand, they have a huge, huge, huge balance sheet. They can fund whatever research in generative AI probably for decades with no problem, especially given how profitable Office and Windows and even Azure are. So again, I think Microsoft ends up in a stronger position as a result.
All right, Rishi Galoria, always great to get your insight. Thanks so much for having on with us here this morning. RBC Capital Markets software equity analyst. Thanks, Rishi.